Hello, you are watching Beyond the Highlights. I am your host, Brian Mossallam, with my co-host, Jason Strayhorn. Today we have two special guests, two former Lion legends, a former offensive tackle great, Lomas Brown, and the former kicker, Eddie Murray, who I grew up on watching both of you guys. Yeah. Not to date you or make you older than me, but how you guys doing?
Doing great, feeling good.
Good.
Same thing, yeah. Things are good, life is good, family's well, and enjoying living in Michigan.
Good. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
We've grown up, I grew up watching you guys and followed both of your careers very well. Tell us a little bit, Lomas, about where you're from and your pathway to Detroit.
Well, I'm from Miami, went to the University of Florida, was drafted up here in '85 by the Lions, and I've been here the whole time. I love the state of Michigan. It's just different things about here that I love about here. My family's here, so, we've made this home, and I intend on being here. I switched my residence. I'm no longer a Floridian. I'm a Michigander now.
Yeah. You got to get that homestead. You got to,
right. Absolutely.
Sure. What year did you retire?
My last year in the league was 2002. My last year with the Lions was 1995.
1995. I remember that. Was that a Philadelphia playoff game?
Yeah, man. It was ugly, man.
A heartbreaker? That squeaker?
And then I kind of had some bold predictions out there. Those bold predictions didn't come through.
I remember that. I remember that.
Gotta bring up bad stuff now.
Yeah. Eddie, how you doing? Thank you for coming on. Why don't you
Thanks
tell us a little bit about your pathway to Detroit? How long
Well,
you were
I
here?
was drafted in 1980. I always tell people I was the first pick of the second day.
Yeah.
Billy Sims was the first pick of the first day for us. So I came in with Billy's draft and played for the Lions from '80 to '91. And then retired in 2000. My last season was with the Redskins. And then fortunate enough to play with the Cowboys in '93 when we won Super Bowl 28. I know Lomas got a chance to move on and play in two Super Bowls for himself, one with the Giants where they didn't win, and one with Tampa where they did win. And I know just awesome. to play at that level and then to get to that game was definitely the pinnacle of our careers,
Yes,
if not mine.
So you guys have had just great careers, great memories, great times at all your stops. Talk a little bit about what is it like to play in the Super Bowl?
Man, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's the pinnacle of your profession. So you've reached the top of your profession. And just to play in that game, just what it represents. And I just remember when I went with the Giants, I remember when we won the championship game, the NFC championship game. And then some of the first people I thought about was like Kevin Glover and Barry Sanders and Herman Moore, guys that didn't get an opportunity to get to this point. I knew Eddie had got to that point, but it was so many other guys that we played with, that we shared a lot of years with right here in Detroit that never got this opportunity. And here I was and got two chances at it, thank goodness, because when you lose one, there's nothing like lose. That's the most hurtful feeling in the world, to lose a Super Bowl, and winning it is it's unbelievable, especially when the confetti's falling.
Yeah.
And it's the right color confetti. I was on the wrong end of the confetti, but when it's the right color confetti, man, it's awesome. It really is. Yeah.
It's the same thing. I know for me, but playing, it was my 14th year in the league when I got to play with the Cowboys, and for me it was. They had won the Super Bowl the year before. So I'm coming off, I'm like riding that tsunami that they had going on at that time, and to get involved with what was going on after them winning, and then being a part of that back-to-back year. My Super Bowl was the first Super Bowl that they decided to play the game the following week. We didn't have the 2-week layoff. So we had beaten San Francisco in Dallas for the NFC Championship game, and Monday we're flying to Atlanta to get ready for the Super Bowl because we played the following week. Wow. So we didn't have that hype and all of that kind of stuff. So I know for me personally, the actual having it sink in, it didn't really hit me until I was walking out, like we'd always go out walking around before the game, and I was walking out on at the Georgia Dome, and just kind of, you know, getting sweat up and kicking a little bit. And then it hit me, and I got so nervous. And I never get nervous. I mean, and I'm not supposed to at my position, especially show it anyway. But I mean, I got nervous. I was out there, and I was kicking, and balls were flying all over the place. And my kicking coach, Steve Hoffman, was like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I'm going, "This is Super Bowl." And he goes, "Yeah. You know, but he'd already been in it before with the year before. And it took me a good 45 minutes, thank God I went out early, to kind of get over everything and just talk myself out of the situation that I was creating in my head, which was, it was a bigger game than it was for me ever to be in. But actually, it was just another game.
It is.
You know, I mean, that's how you have to approach it. And I think that's what kind of separates a lot of the teams when they're getting ready to go into that. I think it is an advantage if you have had some success of getting to it or getting close to it. That's why this year's Super Bowl, of course, you know, everything's kind of going towards Carolina and their offense and their defense, and you know, they're the favorite at this point in time. I know personally I kind of favor Denver because of the fact that they have been there before. They have a lot of players that have played in or have won Super Bowls compared to players that are with the Panthers. And so it's going to be interesting dynamic to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, they do have the General Peyton Manning.
Yes.
This is probably his last game, possibly.
The
Sheriff, that's it. The Sheriff, that's right, not the General.
Yeah.
But speaking about overhyped, we just passed up the National Signing Day for high school kids to go to their college teams. And you guys played at the University of Florida, Lomas. You played at Tulane.
Tulane, yes.
Tulane.
Yeah.
And talk about how you were recruited in high school to get to Tulane, and then we'll talk about your journey to Florida.
I'm kind of a rarity. I'm a Canadian.
Yeah.
So I'm from Victoria, British Columbia, which is an island off of Vancouver. And Tulane is in New Orleans. So it's not like it's in the backyard of being recruited. So I call my story a 3-drink story. So and unfortunately, we only have one in front of us. So I'll try to reduce it down. I was very fortunate. I went to high school and grew up in England.
Okay.
Spent 10 years in England. My father was English, but in the Canadian Navy. 25 years, retired, moved the family to England. So from 5 to 15, I lived in England. My father passed when I was 14, and my mother, being Canadian, moved me back to Canada, and we lived in Victoria. So I was out of high school actually a year. I was working in a lumber yard, driving a forklift, and the BC Lions had a development camp in Victoria, where at that time in the 70s, they had what they called was a junior rule. You could bring a college kid to camp, or anybody who was not in college, you could bring them to camp if you wanted to. So they were looking for talent to go. So I got invited to go to this camp because we had football, but it wasn't like high school football. We had a construction group that sponsored us, you know, a lot of like a Babe Ruth kind of football league. You know, they had companies sponsor us. So it wasn't football in the school. It was all volunteer. It was all, you know, you pay $50 to go play, and that was it. Very unorganized, not good at all. So I went to this camp, and of all things, I got invited to go to training camp for the BC Lions. A gentleman called Cal Murphy was the head coach of the Lions. An old coaching friend of his at San Jose State was a gentleman called Willard Wells. Willard, Cal got fired by San Jose, went to BC to be the head coach. Willard stayed at San Jose for a couple of years, and then he left and signed as an assistant coach at Tulane. He was from Powell River, British Columbia. Powell River is a logging town and an Indian reservation. Okay. It's you know, a one-stop, no traffic light kind of town. Okay, so he was leaving San Jose, going to Tulane, went to see family in Powell River, flew into Vancouver, was going to drive up to Powell River, decided to stop and see Coach Murphy because they coached together. And he walks into the office, and he's looking at film of this camp that I went to. And he's watching me kick.
Destiny.
And you talk about fork in the road. I mean, this is. I mean, I'm trying to reduce it as best I can. But
go ahead. We got another hour and a half.
Okay, good. We'll fill it. So he walks in, sees this film, and he goes, "Oh my God, you know, who's this kid?" He goes, "It's a junior kid we're thinking about bringing to training camp." And he said, "Tulane needs a kicker. Give me his number." So he kept calling me. Well, now you got to realize this is 75. Okay, this is 1975.
I was 1 year old.
All right, so it's no computers. There's no computers, right? There's none of this. You know, it's not like I can Google Tulane University, right? And so I
horse and buggy.
My mother, yeah. Unfortunately, my mother at the time was dying of cancer. She died shortly before I went to Tulane, and so she was sick. She was in and out of hospital, and I was working. So I would work. I'd go to the hospital, see my mom, and come home, and so that was kind of my life. And every time I'd come home, there was a message on the phone machine. "Hi, Coach Willard Wells from Tulane University calling you." I'm going, erase. I'm going, who the hell is Willard Wells? What is Tulane? You know, what is university? You know,
Exactly.
So I'm going, what is it? So I kept erasing it. Well, he happened to catch me on a weekend. And I said, "Look, I don't know who you are, where Tulane is, any of this stuff. I'm going to the Lions camp." And he said, "Well, if you change your mind, we'd like to bring you down on a recruiting trip." So, you know, unfortunately, my mother passed. I talked to my high school soccer coach, and I said, "Hey, what should I do?" And he goes, "Look, this school is calling you. See if they're going to offer you a scholarship." So I called him back. I said, "Is this a for real thing? You know, is this legitimate?" He goes, "Here's a plane ticket. Come on down, and you can see how legitimate it is." And so I did. I took the plane trip. I went down to Tulane. Going, "Oh my God, is it hot down here?" Because now this is late. This was like June. I mean, so it's
really?
past recruiting time.
Way past signing day.
Way past signing day, right? And so I remember going June in New Orleans. I'm going, "Oh my God, I can't put this." You know, so it's a lengthy story, but it was one of those things. I'd still be driving a forklift back in Victoria if this didn't kind of happen. So I'm fortunate that that they offered me a scholarship, and so I had schooling to pay for. I was from a family that couldn't afford for me to go to school, but then again, both my parents had died before I went to college, and so I went through all of that issue there and came out with a degree at Tulane. And then, of course, got fortunate enough to be drafted by Detroit. So I'm one of the rarities. I'm a Canadian that plays football. So I'm a Canadian that can't skate also. That's normally a prerequisite. Canadian, skate. But no, that gene missed me.
Yes,
You can drive trucks, though.
Right, I can drive
Drive a
trucks.
forklift.
So if you need a forklift, I can help you.
Great story.
Mine
How
was
did
just a
you? How
little
did you?
different.
How did you slip past the
Well,
U?
Or
that's
steak.
why I have to go back with mine.
They're
That's
in that
high
heyday,
school.
80, I mean.
Yeah, I know, and
Schnellenberger?
I lived that 30 for 30.
Yeah.
Because he was at either Coach Snellenberger or Gary Stevenson or one of the other assistant coaches was at my house or my high school every single day. It was like the mafia. I'm serious.
We're talking. He's from Miami.
Yeah,
From Miami.
Kids from Miami go to Miami, not
Yeah,
Florida.
No,
Florida.
And it was right when Coach
Gainesville.
Snellenberger got there.
Yeah.
And I remember he told my dad, because my dad had a heart attack my senior year. And I remember he was at the hospital with my dad. And he said, "Mr. Brown," he said, "I'm going to win a national championship in 3 years." This was 1980. And they won it in 83. And he told my dad, me and my dad remembered that because he said that. But I think the thing for me is, it's almost kind of like Eddie. What happened was I was in band. I was in the band the whole
Trombone
time.
player.
Yeah, probably the biggest trombone player in the state
That's
of
right.
Florida.
Didn't play football the first couple of years in high school.
I did.
He was on the band.
Yeah.
Flozell did.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, you know what
Let's
I
get the
heard?
band back.
That's
Let's
what
get
I'm
the
saying.
band back
But
together.
Well, I
Play a little
heard
drums, piano.
there's a correlation between knowing band, remembering the leathers and all of the different
reading
things.
music.
Yeah.
I heard there's a correlation between that and the athletics.
Without
I've
question.
heard there's
I
something to
agree.
do with that. but-
Athletes are musicians. Musicians
You
are
know,
athletes.
Yes.
So
That's
I
the
like
truth.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm multi-talented. But was in the band all the way up, and I remember my first day of high school, I went in to register for classes, and I went in and registered for all my classes. So I'm walking out the auditorium, and then somebody just yelled, "Hey," I hear a voice, and I turn around, and it's the principal. So he calls me down there, and he asked me, he said, "Did you sign up for varsity sports?" And I was like, "No, I'm in the band. I ain't signed up." So he just grabbed me by the arm and took me back down in the gym, in the auditorium, and he signed me up for varsity sports. So unfortunately, I didn't know what varsity sports was, and it was the last period of the day. Come to find out, it was football that he signed me up for. So I'm like, I'm the type of person, I don't like to let people down, especially grown up. So I'm like, man, I didn't want to go, but I went out there because I didn't want to let the principal down. He signed me up for it, and it just went from that point to being uncoordinated. That was the first organized sports I ever played, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew, and I just started loving the game more and more. But if it wasn't for Alex Bromere, like Eddie's saying, there's always somebody or something that comes in your life, and that's why I tell kids, nah, man, never turn your back on the opportunity, or don't say no.
Try it.
Yeah,
give it a
try
shot.
it or think about it.
Give it a
At
shot.
least think about it, but don't let your first thing be no, because it could be the opportunity that takes you there. And if I wouldn't have answered him or went back, or if I wouldn't have went out there, like Eddie said, man, I don't know what I would be doing right now. And things just worked out from that point.
Yep.
See, it's funny because we both played at Michigan State, and both George Perlis and Nick Saban both made probably one of the most prophetic statements anybody's ever made to us, is that you will not realize how many doors football will open up for you.
That's right.
So talk to me a little bit about that and what pro football and your career has done for you now in your afterlife of football.
Well, I know for me, especially coming in 1980, and again, one of those fork in the road situations for me, what we're talking about after football. I remember we were at a fundraiser for WJR. They did a bowl-a-thon where they'd have a WJR personality, a sports celebrity, and then they would have people who would get their, sign up, and they would get their name pulled, and we'd have 3-team charity event at Allen Park Bowl.
Okay.
And so it was after my rookie year. I'd gone to the Pro Bowl my rookie year. I was the first rookie to be MVP in the Pro Bowl game, and so I thought, okay, am I going back to Victoria, or am I going to stay in Detroit? What am I going to do? So I thought, okay, I'm going to stay in Detroit, see what happens. And I was at this event really early in the off season, and I remember sitting down afterwards. There was Joe Schmidt, there was Jimmy David, and Alex Delvecchio, and myself and a couple other guys. And I was sitting there, and they were all saying, "Hey, I had a great year, congratulations, all day." And I'm going, and I'm like this. My eyes are like silver dollars, listening to everything that they said. And Joe Schmidt says, "What are you going to do in the off season?" And I said, "I don't know. I decided to stay here. I just thought I would, immerse myself into the community." And he goes, "You need a job. Let me help you get a job. You got to work." He said, "The city loves athletes." They do. Okay, so off-season jobs were new business, sales, rep, that kind of a situation, right? Well, every year I played football for 20 years, I took a job.
Really?
And it was because Joe Schmidt and all those three
Could've been because of your
individuals,
salary,
but all of those three individuals had off-season jobs as well as companies.
Wow.
Joe Schmidt had his own repping company. Jimmy David also. Alex DeVecchio had a promotional products company that he had for numerous years after playing hockey. So they were the standard for me. And so they helped me. They, I placed me and helped me get a job. And I worked every off season, not knowing, number one, I was going to play 20 years. But I did a bunch of different things. But a lot of it was all new business, sales, those types of things. And I grew a huge Rolodex of networking with people. I have no idea whatever came of it. But I know as I sit here today, and I work for Great Lakes Diversified Group now. We've just got acquired. And Lomas and is forming up a partnership with our company on the minority side for us that it has all come together. It's like it took a while, but all of these entities and all of these people and all of these business experience have just putting a business plan together, getting on the phone, cold calling. Right. It's not that easy to do. And some people fear it, and some people aren't comfortable with it, but it's embracing it. It's like I'm saying, give it a shot. Try it. Do what you can, the best job that you can out of it. Absolutely. And I know Lomas was pulled along a lot when we played too. I know Jerry Ball was very instrumental in talking with you and all of that too, with what to do after football. And I know for me, that was a huge thing for me, because one of the other caveats that I used to do, and it was people thought I was crazy about it, because again, back in those days we didn't have computers, and the thing was, well, we all met each other. What did we do? We exchanged cards, right? We met, you gave me your business card, and we exchanged cards. So back in the day, the off-season golf tournaments, I'm a huge golfer. So you play the charity outings on Monday. So I took that as an opportunity to network, not to go and drink and be obnoxious and not meet with my people. So I would always get the business cards of the people I played with, and I would take something out of that day, whether it was you told me a joke or you hit a good shot or made a good putt or whatever it was, and I would write it, because back then, no computer, no email, I would write a note. Hey, Brian, I've already told your joke twice, had a great day at the American Cancer Society at Indianwood Country Club. Look forward to seeing you next year. Jason, hey, great shot on 17, great putt, had a great day, but something. All right, so I'd send them a note. And then at Christmas, I would send them Christmas cards. Hey, Merry Christmas to you. Look forward to hopefully seeing you at the thing. So we had the Rolodex. People might not know what a Rolodex was, but remember the old Rolodex, right? They had the old thing, you turn it around and then put the cards in. So I had all of these things, these contacts, because my attitude was, how do I know I'm not playing with my next boss?
That's true.
Interesting.
Well, guess what? The very first job I took in 2000 when I retired was with a gentleman I played golf with in a tournament 10 years before when I wrote him a note, and he remembered. He goes, that impressed me, that you did that. And it's a little thing. It was crazy I did it, but I had no idea what was going to come of it. But it affected people, because what was happening also off of it, and I hate to take most of the time with it, but again, it's trying to give a message to younger kids, because now social media, there's so many ways you can reach out to people now. All we had was the mail. That's what we had. We had the mail back then. Because my thing was, with reaching out to these people was, I would get the network of things, but also a lot of the people that were playing at these golf tournaments, they were C-level people. They're not the people on the line working the job. They're management, administrators, C-level people at these.
Decision makers.
Right, they're decision makers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a lot of those people are also president of a Little League. They're they're a part of a Chamber of Commerce.
That's right.
They Boys and Girls Club. They're little sisters, little brothers. They're philanthropic. Well, I would get asked to do appearances because of just sending a note with someone, because someone said, hey, that was nice how you did that. I'm going to ask him to come and speak at my little kid's sports banquet. I'm going to have him come to our Boy Scouts meeting and talk to the kids, something like that. And those little things, if there's ever anything I can talk to guys now, because I think the athlete now doesn't think of those little things. I think that's an important part that I did back then, and it's helped me today.
Lomas, I mean, every day, there's not a day that goes by that Michigan State football doesn't come up with somebody. Every day. It's got to be 100 times more for you. Talk about the doors that it's opened for you.
No, it has. And, the people that you meet, this has been wonderful. Again, people, they're willing to take your call because of who you are. And I think that's an advantage that football gave us. Your celebrity, you get people to listen to you a little bit more. And then, to me, the biggest thing is persuading the youth, because that's what we have to do. I think the youth coming up now, man, and believe me, I got a 16-year-old son and a daughter in my house, and my son, Oh, man, I just shake my head sometimes, man, because he feels titled and privileged, you know, and that's just that new generation that's coming up. And I think for us, we have to reach back and let them know it's not like that. That's not reality. You got to work for everything. You know, I think today everybody just sees the end results. They don't see how we got there. You know, they see us on Sundays, you know, the games on Sundays, but they forget about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when you're preparing for those games, going through that, you know, the all season. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember
2
icing,
days.
sore, all that stuff. They don't see all that. They just see the end results. And that's why I try to tell them it's a journey to get what you want. And I guess with society not being the way it is, it's so quick. Everything wants to happen. And that's the one thing I think I told Eddie that's the one thing I'm finding out about business that's so different.
Let's go.
Well, see, but in business, like for us, I told Eddie, for me, after a game, you know your results. You know whether you won or lost the game. You know if you played good or not in the game. But with business, my goodness, sometimes, man, they want to drag it on and on. And I told Eddie, I'm like, wow, that's the biggest difference for me, you know, coming out that athletic field and entering the business field, because you're kind of like, bam, you want to know the results.
At halftime, and come out with something different.
And then you kind of call yourself for making adjustments, but it's really on the business end, whether they want to do it or not. So you're really at the mercy of the business. So that's a little different for me. But other than that, man, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Going back to your career, so you guys both made a conscious decision to leave the Lions to go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Hey, but it's funny you say that every time somebody meet
60 years, how many years?
I'm going to tell you, it's been. I'm going to tell you, as soon as kids or anything, if I got my Super Bowl ring on, the first thing they say, I know you didn't win it with the Lions. I'd be like, oh my goodness, that'd be the first thing,
they basically forced two of the greatest players ever into retirement.
You know, and it is. It's just like we've been snake bit, this organization. It just
60 years?
Like, I mean, it just seems that way.
A snake lives 12 years.
Even from... That's really good.
I'm just joking.
But even from, you know, some of the other things with Mike Utley and then
I remember
the one player dying and Andelsek. It just seems that way, man. And I'm just hoping, man, that it's being cleansed right now. We're going through this cleansing period with everything being changed over. But I think we're doing a deep down internal cleansing. I don't think we went internal before.
No.
Even when we brought Matt Millen in, I don't think they went internal because they kept a lot of people were still here from the old regime. I think now Mrs. Ford, Mr. Quinn, Mr. Woods, I think they're doing this deep cleansing, which they know.
Yep.
And I think they know what we need.
You know, the proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, the Fords are great people.
Sure.
Very philanthropic. They do a ton for the community, you know? It's just, and you got a great fan base.
Absolutely.
You ever go to the Super Bowl? This town will this town will go this is a great it's a great football state, and any weekend there's 250,000 people watching, you know, Michigan State, the Lions, and you know, the fans deserve they deserve a winner, and I mean,
I like what is being worked on. It's not going to happen overnight, unfortunately. We've heard this scenario before. You know, we're rebuilding, we're doing these types of things. I do agree with Lomas that they've never done a rearrangement as deep as they're going now. So it will. I think Mr. Quinn has the right formula because of where he came from. You know, a stat I only found out this year, and I didn't know about it. Detroit, the Detroit Lions organization, since they've been 60 years, like you said, they've never had back-to-back 10-win seasons.
Yeah, because they flip the schedule. Every time they get 10 wins, they got to play the hard schedule.
If you look at it, if you look at the New England Patriots, you can plug them in for 10 wins. 10 wins is a bad year for them. Right? So wouldn't you mind being 10-6 all the time? That would be great here. So if it's almost like Moneyball. Well, it's almost like Moneyball. Remember the movie Moneyball? Okay, there was a different approach. There was an analytic approach to
small ball.
what Billy Ball
Sure.
brought, okay? So now you bring the approach that the Patriots have ingrained in their staff and bring in someone from that culture.
Right.
It's going to take a while. In theory, this is what the theory is. So again, results are always going to have to show itself.
I think we need to sell the team culture.
Well, you know, I don't know.
To another owner.
Well, I mean,
Just my opinion.
It still has to have some culture at that level that they're changing now. You know, there's 4 of us here. Okay, we have ladies in the studio. Okay, so we're all going to look, and we'll go, well, that lady's attractive. Lomas might say, well, that lady's short. You might say, I like the lady's hair. I like the lady's eyes. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Mm-hmm. That's the point I'm bringing up. With football, they have the same pool. All the teams are looking at the same players. They're all looking at the same schools. They all have the same ability to travel, look at film now, check everybody all out, and evaluate talent. The problem is the people evaluating the talent for the Lions, I think, have not done a good job. Mm-hmm. They've done an okay job, but they haven't made the right decisions of drafting, bringing in free agents, all of those types of things. So that's where Mr. Quinn comes in and brings a different set of eyes looking at the same talent. And that's where hopefully that will change.
It's going to be interesting. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Appreciate you having you. Lomas Brown, Eddie Murray, 2 Lions legends. For Jason Strayhorn and myself, Brian Mossallam, you are watching Behind the Highlights. So long, everybody. Thank you.